Hello, Mind Mappers, and welcome to the video. Today we're going to be going over Black Hole Focus by Hankle PhD, how intelligent people can create a powerful purpose for their lives. Now, as AJ Jacobs says, this was an absurdly motivating book. I really enjoyed it. But I do want to give a bit of a disclaimer before we get all the way into the introduction. There are some analogies, some studies that might not sit right with certain people. So I just wanted to let you know that this is a really great book. I really enjoyed it. I think there is a lot of really good value inside of the book, but there are a few things that some people might not be interested in. And that's totally okay if that's not you. You can shut off the video and move on to the next book. But if you're interested in Black Hole Focus and you're interested in this really motivating book, I implore you to stay tuned. With that, let's get directly into the introduction. Nothing escapes a black hole. In fact, black holes are called black because nothing escapes them, not even light. The world's top physicists used to believe that anything that entered a black hole was obliterated, but that's no longer the popular viewpoint. Current research shows that instead of destroying objects, black holes transform them. Imagine if your purpose in life was as powerful as a black hole. With a force this strong, absolutely everything in your life would be pulled towards it, and nothing would escape. Every thought, every action, your entire identity would be sucked into it. And as a result, who you are, what you have, and how you live would be completely transformed. Determining your ultimate purpose in life is the toughest decision that you will ever make, which is why so few people actively decide on one. Instead, most people let life make this critical decision for them. These people fritter their lives away in an endless stream of tiny, meaningless decisions that elicit no great change and leave no real impact. They spend all their time and resources putting out day-to-day fires and focus on short-term objectives. Black Hole Focus will show you how to avoid this hollow fate, how to decide your purpose, and how to align your life around your chosen path. So, really, what this quote struck a chord in me with was, what is our ultimate purpose in life? It's definitely a tough question to answer. So tough that most of us don't even ask the question of ourselves. Instead, we go about our life and we go about the flow. We just kind of follow along with what's put in front of us, and our day-to-day lives are just spent putting out these fires and focusing on short-term objectives. We don't spend so much time thinking about the why of it all. And that's definitely one way to do things. I'm not saying that's the right way or that's the wrong way. But as laid out in this book, if we choose that path, we certainly are missing out on certain things that are not often talked about in society. Instead of drawing energy into ourselves and transforming it into something more meaningful, we might spend our energy working on something that doesn't actually fulfill us all that much, only to come home tired at the end of the day. Before we get started, let's check in. Where are you on sort of this energy scale? Do you know your purpose and have a clear understanding of how to align yourself around that chosen path? Or are you more going with the flow and not worrying about what your true priorities are and what your true priorities really should be in this one lifetime that we get? Another quick note here, this is definitely a heavy book, if you couldn't tell that right from the beginning. We're talking about a lot of deep and meaningful questions around the why of it all. So this is only the beginning. It gets a lot deeper from here. Proceed with caution. If this book is for you, I think you're really going to enjoy it. But if it's not for you, there's no shame in moving on to the next one. Before we get into the book, let's talk a little bit about mind mapping. You can get the most out of these mind maps by following along. You can find the process of how I mind map, plus all 50 plus mind map templates, including this one, at the link down below. You can also find all of my masterclasses, ones on mind mapping, ones on learning, ones on habits and goal setting. These are all available at themindmapguy.com. I've essentially synthesized dozens of books on each one of these different topics into a 2-hour-long masterclass that revolves around a mind map full of action items that you can put directly into play in your life. Following along with these mind maps, along with those masterclass mind maps, will help you learn more, remember better, and apply these books to your life, which of course is what we're all trying to do at the end of the day. The first point that I pulled out of the book is sheep, but crossed out. Sheep are the ultimate tacticians. They only respond to two things: sticks being banged behind them and carrots being held out in front of them. This is coming from Isaiah's time as a sheep shearer. This is why it's so easy to shear the sheep. Their herd mentality and lack of foresight make it very easy to funnel them down a narrow track until they are stuck, trapped by their own tactical nature. But sheep aren't the only animals that get stuck by groupthink and nearsightedness. It happens to humans too. When we live our lives within the herd and without far-sighted vision, like sheep, instead of strategists, we end up trapped. Feeling trapped in a situation or bound by our circumstances is one of the worst feelings in the world. I'm sure we've all felt that before. It can feel like you're slowly rotting while everyone else around you is getting ahead. The good news is that no matter how far down your tactical rabbit hole you've traveled, it's never too late to start thinking like a strategist. A strategist is someone who can see the end from the beginning and who acts independently from other people's expectations. A strategist is someone who maps out their purpose in life and works backwards to fulfill that purpose. So, really, what we're looking at inside of this quote is two different ways to live our lives, two different people really to be, two different paths that we can choose. We can choose the sheep or a strategist. And that's the question that we're asking ourselves at the beginning of my point. Are you a sheep or are you a strategist? And also, have you chosen which one you would rather be? Here's how you can tell. Sheep have this in common. They usually spend their time worrying about what other people think. They live their lives based on what other people are doing, and they just follow the path that's set out before them. And they often succumb to nearsightedness and chase pleasure and avoid pain at all costs. Strategists operate a different way. They're deeply in touch with their purpose in life, and they don't let the opinions of others affect that. They think independently, and they think independent of pathways set out in front of them by society. Instead, they follow the path that they create for themselves. They have a long-term, outcome-based framework for making decisions in the moment. In my opinion, we want to lean more towards being strategists. Often, being a sheep is just going to lead us to following the same path that other people before us have laid out. And where's the fun in that? So, why aren't there more strategists? If strategist is kind of obviously the better path, in my opinion, why aren't there more of us? Well, it's the more difficult path in the short term, by far. Being a strategist means not only asking difficult questions of yourself, but also living up to the answers that you get. Giving up short-term pleasures for long-term fulfillment is the hallmark of a strategist, and it's not the hallmark of a sheep or even the way that our brains are actually wired for the, you know, millions of years of evolution that we've been through. So, what's the point? When we're born, we're only given one thing. The point of being a strategist is this one thing. And the one thing is a chance at this crazy experience called life. Whether you believe in another life after this one or not, this is the only one that we have for sure. At our deathbed, do we want to have lived a life not connected to our purpose and simply have followed the path of short-term pleasure and foregoing the real path of purpose that a strategist would follow? It's a good question to ask. I told you we were going to get into some deep ones here today. Our next big idea is one of my favorites. It's called Ikigai. In the Blue Zones, Dan Buttner describes regions of the world where people commonly live active lives well past 100 years old. Buttner discusses a particular blue zone located on the northern part of the main island, Okinawa. He calls this place Ground Zero for world longevity because people in this area have the longest disability-free life expectancy in the entire world. Super cool. These Okinawans live about 7 good years longer than the average American. They also have 1/5 the rate of colon and breast cancer and 1/6 the rate of cardiovascular disease. The Okinawan language has no word for retirement. Instead, there is one word that Okinawans live by: Ikigai. Roughly translated, it means the reason for which you wake up in the morning. It's something that we've talked about a lot on this channel already. I have a full book review on a book called Ikigai that goes much deeper into this topic. I have lived my life by Ikigai for the past several years, and it's really a profound shift. Whether it's teaching karate at 102 or learning to fish at 104, the Okinawans maintain a strong sense of purpose. Butner believes this intimate relationship with direction is why the Okinawans live for so long. So, really, Ikigai is translated to the reason that we wake up in the morning. It also happens to be that the reason that some people live so much longer, fulfilling lives, right? If you're waking up in the morning for a specific purpose and you're kind of excited for the day rather than dreading the day, it makes sense that you're going to want to continue living for a long period of time. The Japanese art of Ikigai brings a deep level of purpose to your life, grounded in the day to day rather than some long term focus that might not actually be sustainable, might not actually be motivating for you. Instead of getting up just to repeat the same actions day after day after day, people with a deep sense of Ikigai wake up with a purpose, direction, and intent. Your purpose, your Ikigai, is fuel for your internal engine. It's what gives you direction and keeps you moving forward. The more purpose you inject into your life, the brighter your internal spark will burn, the longer you will live, and the more productive you will be while you're alive. And what I love so much about Ikigai is we're focusing on the moment to moment to moment. How you feel waking up in the morning. That's so important because often we think of these grand purposes and then we don't connect it to the short term. We talked about sheep and strategists before. The secret is that strategists understand how to connect their long term purpose to their short term pleasure and pain. That's the way that you can stay motivated for a lifetime. If you want to learn a little bit more about this principle, this taking the long term focus and bringing it into the moment, I recommend that you check out the book No Sweat by Michelle Seeger on the channel. I really dive deeply into that topic inside of that book. So, how do you find your Ikigai? That might be a question that you're asking if you're brand new to the topic. And what I would say is take a look at this diorama. This is essentially Ikigai. It's taken right out of the book. What you can see here is we've got four overlapping circles. We've got what we love, what we're good at, what we can be paid for, and what the world needs. And at the intersection of each one of these is our Ikigai. You can see that inside of this diorama, again, there is interesting points that maybe you are not directly inside of your Ikigai. But if you've got an overlap between what you love, what you're good at, and what you can be paid for, you can get a feeling of satisfaction and usefulness. And if you've got an overlap of what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at, you've got a comfortable but your feeling of emptiness. So it's really good. You can kind of notice your day to day feelings and slowly move closer towards the Ikigai. Ikigai for me is the process of actually honing in on these four circles. I don't believe that one day you're going to be able to exactly get directly in the middle of your Ikigai. I believe that you're likely closer to what you can be paid for right now than what you're actually good at and what the world really needs. Certainly closer to what you can be paid for than what you really love. And I believe that the more that you can hone in on your Ikigai and move your pinpoint on this map towards the Ikigai, the more fulfilled and happier you'll be for a longer lifetime. Maybe you might start with a clear sense of what you're good at. You can start at any different sides. You might know what you love, but not know how you can be paid for it. You might know what you're good at, but you might not know how to connect that to what the world really needs. Each day we wake up is an opportunity to get closer to our own personal Ikigai. And for me, Ikigai really mirrors entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship really mirrors Ikigai. I believe that they have a really strong connection. Each day the entrepreneur wakes up deeply connected to their Ikigai is a day that they can be more successful. It's been my experience that becoming a high level entrepreneur actually correlates to connecting deeper with my Ikigai. Often, what we're going to start a business around is what we truly love, what we're passionate about. We can also learn to get good at that thing that we love. That's a relatively easy process. We spend long hours learning all about computer programming or graphic design or anything that we truly are finding passion around. The two hard parts for entrepreneurship is generally what we can be paid for and what the world needs. So, entrepreneurship is generally we're starting in these two different circles, trying to move more towards connecting with the deeper sense of what the world really needs and what we can be paid for. Moving closer and closer towards your Ikigai is going to mean you get paid more and more for what you truly love to do and what you're already good at. That's why I believe that Ikigai and entrepreneurship have an overlap. They have a connection. And the more you can see entrepreneurship as Ikigai and Ikigai as entrepreneurship, the better you're going to be along your journey. The more likely you're going to be successful in entrepreneurship or in business over the long term. It probably goes for your career as well. I'm speaking probably from my own entrepreneurship bias. Our next big idea here is rats and hope. This one's a little graphic. If you want to skip to the next one, the path, I totally understand. In the 1950s, Kurt Richer, a Harvard graduate and Johns Hopkins scientist, did a series of experiments that tested how long rats could swim in a high-sided bucket of circulating water before drowning. Dr. Richer found, under normal conditions, that a rat could swim for an average of 15 minutes before giving up and sinking. However, if he rescued the rats just before drowning, dried them off, and let them rest briefly, and then put them back into the same buckets of circulating water, the rats could swim an average of 60 hours. That's 60 hours, 15 minutes from 60 hours. If a rat was temporarily saved, it would survive 240 times longer if it was not temporarily saved. This makes no sense. How could these rats swim so much longer during the second session, especially just after swimming as long as possible to stay alive during the first session? Dr. Richer concluded that rats were able to swim longer because they were given hope. A better conclusion is that the rats were able to swim longer because they were given energy through hope. The rats had a clear picture of what becoming saved looked like, so they kept swimming. Hope increases our ability to endure almost anything. Of course, what the rats were doing was enduring this amazing feat of swimming for over 60 hours. They increased their ability to swim 240 times just by having hope. Obviously, now this isn't a human study. Thankfully for that. I'm definitely not a fan of swimming rats until they drown, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't learn something from this study. So, what does it all mean? What it means is that hope is a clear, positive picture of the future, and it gives us the drive to get there. Purpose equals hope, equals energy. That's a great little equation that you could write down. Purpose equals hope equals energy. Defining the path in front of you will give you the energy you need to complete it. The key is to positively visualize the end at the beginning. You don't have to actually see the finish line, you just have to envision it. Vision creates hope, or a feeling of expectancy, and hope creates energy. So again, coming back to that, purpose equals hope equals energy. So how can we give ourselves hope? Something I learned from Brian Tracy recently and inside of his book, Maximum Achievement, is this has it been done rule that he talks about. Basically, the process looks like this. He says, step number 1, determine your compelling version of the future, your vision, so to speak, and write it down. He says, step number 2, we should find someone who has already accomplished our vision and see what obstacles they had to overcome. Step number 3 is to remember if it's been done before with someone who has had many or more obstacles than we have, you can do it too. Today, we'll add step number 4. We'll talk about the rats and hope and how it gives us more energy. We want to visualize that compelling future over and over again. Understanding our obstacles, of course, like we talk about inside of Rethinking Positive Thinking by Gabrielle Oettingen, we want to make sure that we're never moving past our obstacles. We want to keep the obstacles in frame because that continues to give us energy as well. We need energy to overcome those obstacles. Then, once we have that vision, we use that vision to kind of repattern again and again and again to generate hope, which again, at the end of it all, gives us energy, which is really what we're looking for, right? We want to stay up late. We want to be able to work on our businesses. We want to have a ton of focus. This is really the beginning, bringing our vision into reality and then remembering it, repatterning it every single day so that we continue to have hope that we can actually accomplish what we so desire, what our purpose truly is. Our next big idea is called the path, and it says that you can achieve greatness. No matter where you are in life right now, there is something that you can be uniquely incredible at. I truly believe this as well. But before you can be incredible, you must believe that you can do anything. That's the first step. The next step is a little harder. You must decide what you want to be incredible at. So this is really interesting, right? We've got two steps. The first one is that we can do anything. Believe that we can do anything. And most people get tripped up even on that spot. That's a lot of what I'm doing inside of the coaching, letting people know, hey, you can do this. That's something that people really need. They need someone to believe in them. But the next step is often the more difficult step, deciding what you want to be incredible at. So, again, step number one, there is something that you can be incredible at out there in the world. The first step to actualizing this is actually believing that you can. See our note about hope above. Those rats believed that they could be saved. First, we've got to believe that we can accomplish anything that we put our minds to. This comes from many different places. Our previous experiences, if we've accomplished something in the past, we can definitely do it in the future. Our current experience, if we have a lot of skills in a particular domain, we might believe that we can accomplish something, or at the very least, the experience of others. Those are all great places to start. Build up your hope. Start with hope first. Now, our next step, maybe the more difficult step for you, is to decide on the path. An analogy I love is to imagine that you've got 10 units of energy. Could be 10 days, could be 10 hours, could be 10 meters, whatever you want. Now, you can spend this energy in two different ways. Number one, you could spend 1 unit of energy in 10 different directions, in which case you end up in the same place that you started. Or you could spend 10 units in one singular direction, which puts you 10 units ahead of where you currently are. Obviously, we want to get as close to spending 10 units in one direction as we possibly can. That's how we're going to actually become world class at anything. We can't be world class at everything, but there is something that we can be uniquely incredible at out there for us. How do we decide the path? This is, again, a very difficult question. Most of the advice that I've picked up over the years is quite simple, though. We need to decide what our path is going to be. We've talked about vision, we've talked about hope, we've talked about Ikigai. I suggest that you determine that your purpose and your path is to continually find your Ikigai and start moving down the path. Be willing to make 1% improvements every day and try not to make big shifts unless you're certain that you're on the wrong path. And if that happens, make the decision to get off that path quickly and move on. Those are kind of the two big parts of making the decision and moving into actually the path, the thing that's going to make you truly great, the one thing that you can actually be incredible at happens by choosing something to be incredible at and moving towards that 1% at a time. Our final big idea here today is called decision. A decision is the link between wanting something to happen and making something happen. Your vision will remain a fantasy until you decide to transform it into a reality. Without a decision, your vision is a pipe dream. It's a wishful thinking. This is how most people live their entire lives, hoping for something to happen but never actually deciding to make it happen. Their goals are better described as wishes. Their visions are actually hallucinations. You can be different by making the decision to fulfill your purpose. Cut yourself off from any other opinion. By making this decision, you will automatically raise your mind's expectations. You will bring the full breadth of your mental powers to your attention. So I really love this point here. A vision is just a hallucination without decision. So, what are decisions really? They're a commitment you make to action. They're what you need in order to make your vision a reality and take the imagined into the real world. What's the number one decision that we can make? It's the decision to fulfill our purpose. That's what this whole book has really been about. Today is the day to make the decision to be the creator of your life rather than just the observer. Because your true intuitive knowing spirit will not invest itself and its energy into compromise. That's coming directly from a bunch of amazing books on this channel, but essentially, you have to be true to yourself. You have to truly believe that what your vision is what you really want, and that you're not selling yourself short by creating compromises with your true inner voice. This was Black Hole Focus by Isaiah Hankle PhD. I want to thank you for being with me here today on the YouTube channel. If you're interested in diving a little bit deeper into purpose or habits or goals, check out the masterclasses that I have available on my website, themindmapguy.com. It's a link in the description. I hope to see you there.